Good afternoon, Kyle. Thanks for the time today. What's your overall assessment of Fred's play through 30 games, or the games he's played in, I guess?
I think with Fred, this is his fifth year with the team now, and I know in going through this before with Steve, I know it's a major topic, but I think if Fred's shown us anything in the 4.5 seasons that he's been with us, it's that he has a tremendous ability to gather himself when he may not be playing to the standard that he sets for himself, and I think he's been very open about that. And I think if you go back through each of the seasons, anytime where Fred has found himself in a bit of a rut per se, he's able to pull himself out of it, and that's the expectation of what we'll see from him as we move ahead.
Well, maybe you disagree with this one, Kyle, but is there to pull out of the rut though? The rut kind of goes back to last season, and I don't know if you see it that way or not, but is this thing a little bit lengthier? And I'm not saying he's been terrible, but it's a little bit lengthier than maybe you'd hope for at this point, or how do you see that?
Yeah, I would say, Terry, that on that, I mean, I think going back to last season, I don't think early on in the year, and we had stretches of the year where we were really poor defensively, where regardless of who was in net for us, it was a tough place to play in net. And then I thought in the second part of the season, I think if you go back to around the same time last year, maybe I have it off because the calendar is tough to follow for the last 12 months or so, but we were in that sort of late February part of the calendar, and Fred had not been playing well. And then on the California trip, I thought he had an exceptional trip. And then coming back home against Tampa, he pulled himself out of it then and it started to string together some excellent performances. And so I have a lot of faith that Fred over time has continually shown us that he's able to find his way out of it and that he will.
Next up, we'll go to Mark Masters, TSN. Go ahead, Mark.
Kyle, where do you see the biggest opportunity for growth from the group in the second half of the season?
Yeah, I think, Mark, we've got a great opportunity right now. And I think we showed, even in that stretch in Vancouver and the first half of that Winnipeg series, I thought we were playing well. They get some great goaltending from Demko with Vancouver, and then Hellebuck, as we all know, those are high-end goaltenders. They played very well, and coming off that Edmonton series, maybe we did let our foot off the gas a little bit, after having swept them. And I think the things that goes back to the original availability I had at the beginning of the year, and we had the beginning of the year, which is a real focus on staying consistent throughout the regular season. And I would be more alarmed if we had played poorly, really poorly in Vancouver and in the first half of the Winnipeg series. But I thought we did play well. And I think it's our ability to stick with that and continue to grow as a group, as we did through February and the early part of March. That is a great opportunity for growth. If you go back, I mean, I do this a lot and try to study other teams and where they're at in their seasons and how they've gone through them. If you go back to last season, just as an example, and you look at the teams that were in that Final Four, whether it's Tampa, the Islanders, Dallas, Vegas, they all had really bad stretches of their season as well, where they had, whether it was winning 3 of 11 or 12 games, or losing 7 or 8 in a row. And I think the great teams find a way to stop the bleeding and pull themselves out and use those as an opportunity to grow and improve and get better. And so that's what I'm looking at now, Mark, from our group.
A general question of just about the game right now. There's been a couple of fights in the North Division that have resulted in injuries of late. What's your just general feel of the role fighting has in today's game?
Yeah, I mean, you never like to see anybody hurt, regardless of how it happens. I think with there being so much familiarity between the clubs, Mark, that you're going to have more and more instances where tempers flare, whether it's between teams or between teams and officials. Everybody's seeing each other so often. And I think that leads to an increased focus on physicality and just the temperance part of it kind of flaring a little bit and getting off the rails. And I think that's where it goes. But we've had this discussion here a lot and over the years, just about what toughness truly is and represents. And I don't necessarily think it has to do with just fighting. I think it's how you play, how hard you play, how you compete for loose pucks in space. And that's how we focus on it, not so much on the fighting part.
Next up, we'll go to Kevin McGran, Toronto Star. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hi, Kyle. This may be more of a Marlies question than a Leafs question, but you managed to make a couple of trades in the season in which people tell us it's hard to make trades. Can you sort of give the plan for what you think is going to happen with Alex Galchenyuk and whether he has a chance to make your roster this year, and also go through the logic of the Lettinen trade and what Valvainen offers you in net as a depth goalie?
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. So with Alex, it's a bit of convenient. It was convenient because he was still in Ottawa, so we didn't have to deal with the 14-day quarantine that every person coming into Canada has to deal with right now. But as it pertains to roster space and so on and so forth, it was just really convenient that we could have him drive from Ottawa, test a couple times, and be a part of our group. And in discussions with Alex and with Pat Brisson, his agent, it was clear that we needed to kind of get into a situation where we could reset Alex, start to build him back up. He was obviously a player that had a great stretch in his early 20s and has now bounced around for a few teams. So what we wanted to do was stabilize him, get him working with our development staff, and then get him in and rolling with games with the Marlies. And it was just really fortunate how it all worked out. Where the Marlies were at that time, they had a lot of games coming up. The fact that he was already in Canada, and we just saw it as a chance to add to our forward depth and try to work with Alex and allow our development staff and Greg Moore and the Marlies work with Alex and attempt to get him on track. And in the reports from, I watch all the games, but more importantly, the reports from Greg and the Marley staff and from our development staff here, he's been outstanding in terms of his work ethic, commitment, his attitude, and watching the games, he's obviously played quite well. We just want to continue to have him build up his confidence and improve his form. And certainly I think that that in time he'll get an opportunity. And then on the secondary trade there last week of Mikko Lettinen to Columbus for Vini Vivalainen, it was just a situation where Mikko had come over here clearly with the intention of playing in the NHL, and he'd gotten into, I think it was 9 or 10 of our first 25, 26 games, and wanted to do right by him a little bit and wanting to give him a chance where, we had felt our defense was playing well. We've also got other D, Sandin coming back healthy. Liljegren has played extremely well for the Marlies and been in the taxi squad, plus Rosen, Marinson, Hollowell, and others that have played well. That, rather than just be committed to give one person those opportunities when guys can't go, or to change our third pair, as Sheldon has done sometimes this year, that it was probably best to have to work with Mikko and his group and find a solution for him so that he can try to accomplish his dream that he set out when he came over here from Jokerit. So our goal was to try to return a goaltender. It's been a situation this year where Joe Wall has had to, in order to abide by the NHL's rules on available goaltenders, Joe Wall's development has kind of been squeezed a little bit. He's only been able to play one game because we've had to bring him with us to serve as our number 3, especially with Campbell being in and out of the lineup, and Fred was injured as well. So we felt getting a depth goaltender was important, and our staff, particularly our R&D staff, have been big fans of Vini for a long time, and he's been an excellent goaltender in Finland and international play, and to start his career in Cleveland last season. So we're excited to have him. He's in quarantine. He's on day 3 of 14, so he'll get out and rolling, and we'll incorporate him into the program.
Next up, we'll go to Josh Clipperton, Canadian Press. Go ahead, Josh.
Hey, Kyle. Your vision for this team and its roster construction came under a lot of fire, was dissected a lot from a lot of angles before this season. Apart from the recent stretch, and you talk about February and early March, you guys have had some great goaltending opponents, and before the last 2 games, do you feel at all vindicated in how the team has shown it can perform?
I wouldn't say vindicated, Josh. I regardless of what's being said about the team or me outside the group, I think, I put a lot of pressure on myself to continue to help with Shanny and with Sheldon and with Brandon Pridham and Lawrence and our group here, continue to build it and get better. And I don't think it's anywhere close to where we think we can be in time. So, and that's sort of the part that drives us and drives me is that I think we've had it really good stretches this year, but there have been at times when I think that I haven't done a good enough job whatsoever in helping the team. And whether that's what drives me or what pushes me in the group to get better, then that's fine. But certainly not vindicated by good stretches in the regular season. I think an entire regular season of great results and the results that we expect would be one thing, and then that fueling playoff success would be another. But until the goal for the group is high performance sustained year after year, and I think only after that time, years on, would I ever feel that any sort of vindication, even still be trying to drive to continue that as long as we can. But I certainly feel that any criticisms are warranted until we reach that point, and I don't take them personally at all.
And you've made big trades in junior and some in the NHL. This season is so different. We got a North Division team guaranteed in the conference final. No Tampa, no Boston. How do you know when to quote unquote go for it, and how do you balance all that with prospects and the way this season is and the opportunity?
Yeah, I think the team tells you that, Josh, and how they respond. I think especially this will be a great stretch because the team will show how they respond when things aren't going perfectly. It's great. It's great when you wake up every day and you're winning, and it's a lot of fun and it's easy. But when you start to stumble a little bit, maybe you don't get the results that you want as consistently as you have. I think it's a great opportunity for growth. And as I mentioned in opening, the great teams are the teams that have great seasons and go on great runs. They all deal with these types of stretches, and they deal with them very, very well. They use them to fuel better performance and better form and better results as it goes on. And that's what I'm looking for now. And if our group can do that in combination of what they showed at the beginning of the year, I think the onus will be on me to do everything within reason to improve the group.
Next up, we'll go to Chris Johnston, Sportsnet. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Kyle. With an understanding that the cap situation can change daily, I'm just wondering how much room or flexibility you think you have now and will have before April 12th to add salary.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think certainly, the cap situation, not only for us, but if you look at it for, I think 2/3 of the team in the league is very tight. So I'm very, very fortunate here to have Brandon Pridham on the staff, and he and I talk for hours a day of different things that we can do and will do and are attempting to accomplish as we go through it. And I just think we're going to have to be creative, and we're going to have to find ways any way we can to improve the team now and in the future, knowing that the salary cap is going to be stagnant, not only now in the season, Chris, but also in future years here. So, I think that's where Brandon's value is even more immense than usual, or at times like this, because he not only has a great understanding of our situation, but of other situations, and can come up with different ideas, and we can bounce things off one another before we go to other clubs in the marketplace and try to find a way to improve the team with limited cap space.
Okay, and was putting Jimmy Vesey on waivers today, is that a cap related move, or is there something else at play there?
I think a couple of things. Because of what happened at the beginning of the year, so we had put a bunch of the guys who've now kind of comprised our fourth line or third line on waivers or sent them down, and that allowed what I thought at the beginning of the year was a really good competition. So even when guys were producing, whether it was Adam Brooks or Patan or Travis Boyd, Joey Anderson, VC Spezza, the different players who played in those roles, they were still coming in and out of the lineup, and I thought that competition really fueled great performance from those players. And really, when Campbell came off long-term injured reserve and back onto the roster, but now has been sort of day to day here, since the game in Edmonton, it's sort of limited what we can do in terms of players coming on and off, especially because we don't have much waiver flexibility with those guys on the lower end of our roster. They've gone past that 10-game threshold long ago. And so one of the things we're looking to do is to increase our flexibility on roster, but also as Campbell gets closer to return and Simmons gets closer to return, we do have to do some juggling with the cap situation.
Next up, we'll go to Jonas Siegel, The Athletic. Go ahead, Jonas.
Hey, Kyle, will the circumstances of this year in particular lead you to be more aggressive ahead of the deadline than you might be in a normal season?
I think normally, Jonas, that we've going back on the 2 deadlines now, we've tried to act as early as possible. I think with the Muzzin trade and then Campbell and Clifford last year, those were about the same day off the top of my head, sort of early February. They were 3 weeks or 4 weeks away from the deadline, and right now we sit just under 4 weeks away from the deadline. I think given the quarantine that's in place right now of 14 days where the player is going to come in and the player is going to come in and sit for 14 days in their hotel and then join the club, we're going to be in a tougher spot to certainly get as much out of it as we can. And if you look at the schedule where it goes, we're April 12th as the deadline, and then if you go the 2 weeks beyond that, you're April 27th, 28th before they get out of their hotel. And then they're only with the team for, I think it's like 6 games and 10 days or something like that. So certainly provides an incentive to try to make the moves earlier. It takes 2 to make that happen though. So we'll see, Jonas, but certainly for us, the sooner we can get a player in here through the quarantine and then integrate them into our program systems wise and what we're about, the better for them and for us.
And then as far as goaltending, do you feel like you're kind of set there with what you've got?
I think when healthy and when everyone is up and rolling, I think it's a great tandem. And Hutch has come in and given us good minutes. I think Sunday night was not a great night for anybody on the team, but we've been happy. I was happy with how Joe Wall played for the Marlies on Friday. Look forward to him getting more games, but I've got a lot of belief in both Fred and Jack Campbell and Hutch when he's in. So we'll look to continue to get everybody healthy and rolling, and we'll go from there.
Next up, we'll go to Mike Zeisberger, NHL.com. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, Kyle. Thank you very much for doing this. You talked about the ebbs and flows of a season. When you look at that 3 games in Edmonton, 3 wins from 3 different goalies, 2 wins without Austin Matthews. Have you been around this team where they put together a better, complete 3 games in a row? And can that act as kind of like, you put that up and tell the guys, look, you bought in, this is what we can do, especially against the opponent that you played?
I certainly think there's something to what you're saying, Mike, big time. That was going into that series. Edmonton had, I forget exactly what it was, but it was a 3-game series where Edmonton was, you would know exactly. I think they were 4 points behind us or 6 points or whatever it was. They had come off of their rough stretch of the season. I think they had won 11 of 13 heading into that against us. And so it's set up for these very unique, they kind of feel like in baseball, right? When you get into the July and August and you've got the first and second place team in these series, which I think have been one of the great parts of the season where the big swings can happen. And I thought it showed what we're capable of when we're, I think, both offensively, defensively, and in net. And it certainly serves as an example of what we can be. Now the key is doing that as often as possible, and not just when you're concerned about an elite offensive team and with 2 of the best players in the game. Not just in those situations, but against every team that we play. And so I think it does serve as a great example of what we can be when we're at our best. Now it's a matter of doing that as often as possible.
You and Sheldon had talked about, through the off season and that to focus on team defense, keeping guys to the outside and that. In general, through the first half of the season, can you talk a little bit about your assessment of how guys have bought in and how the improvements that you have made in that respect?
Yeah, I think, just in terms of where we're at in general in that regard, whether it's, certainly I think the quality of chances that we're giving up or the number of goals, notwithstanding, I mean, we're coming off back-to-back games where we certainly gave up more than we want to in terms of goals and chances. But I think we have been generally happy with the improvements that we've made in that realm, and especially I think the commitment from our absolute best offensive players to the defensive side and sort of leading the way. I think the way that we always looked at it is if those players can excel, in all three zones of the rink, it forces everybody else on your team to do the same. And I think we've been quite happy with that, Mike. And I think we still have a lot of room where we can get better in it, though, and that's what we'll be looking for in the second half.
Next up, we'll go to Lance Hornby, Toronto Sun. Go ahead, Lance.
Hey, Kyle. Now that you have a little bit of data, can you talk about maybe adding depth in the second half regards to the Marlies? Robertson, Galchenyuk, Sandin are some names, and where might they fit in as you go forward?
Sorry, Lance, the first part of your question cut out. I didn't.
You have a little bit of data now on some of the
Yeah, I think that, with those depth type players that we've got there, and then we'll have more guys coming over from Europe as their season ends. Like, for example, Semyon Dargachintsev, he was in the KHL with Torpedo this year. He's in day 4 or 5 of his quarantine after their season ended. He had a really, really good season for them, playing as their second line center in the KHL at 20. So we're happy with him, and we'll have more of our others, whether it's Hollander, Mulligan, come over once their seasons are done, Lance. So I think as we get deeper into the year, the competition will increase. And, we've had strong performances from guys on the Marlies as well, whether it's Galchenyuk, Barabanov obviously had a great couple of games, and that was the intention, to get him down there playing in big minutes. But we feel good about the depth and where our prospect pool is at right now in terms of being able to challenge guys on the roster and push guys on the roster. And so we're happy with that. And I think especially as the Marlies have gotten playing, and they're through 13 games or so now, or 14 games now. We feel good about where that's at, and the improvements that those players have shown under Greg's leadership with them.
You brought in veterans exactly for a moment like this, really, the off season with Simmons and Thornton and such. How do you feel they've done so far?
They've been, I don't know if you could hear Joe in the hallway, but he doesn't really take many days off, and his attitude and disposition doesn't change day to day. He's sort of seen it all in his time in the league. And I think they've brought a lot of spirit to the group. I would say all of the players acquired in the off season have really improved the spirit of the team. And, unlike in previous seasons where you go through a bit of a stretch where it's not going well and you feel the group start to sag, I haven't felt that right now. And I think that guys like Joe with Wayne getting closer to his return, whether it's this week or next week, they add a lot to the group. And I think we talked about last year at the end of the year, and then through the off season and in the season opening media, that's sort of been an area that has been a focus for us. And, whether it's been adding Muzzin and Clifford and Campbell, but certainly this off season again with Brody, Thornton, Simmons, and Bogosian, I do think that that's a real important part of helping the team chemistry and the culture and environment of the group. And those guys don't change day to day, and they've added a lot to us so far.
Next up, we'll go to David Alter of the Hockey News. Go ahead, David.
Hey, Kyle. Zach Hyman's had a quite versatile season for you guys. I'm just curious as to if there's been any talks with his immediate or long-term future with the club. And I guess the second part of that is, how much has the expansion draft played any sort of role in trying to figure out things beyond, I guess, for this season for acquiring guys, but beyond the season as well?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I mean, Zach, in terms of his versatility, I don't disagree with you too much, but the one part I would disagree is that his versatility has been something from the time he arrived here in May or June of 2015 that he's brought in every single day. His work ethic and leadership and character, it's never been a question for us, and he can go up and down the lineup and be as effective on that line like he was in Edmonton with Mikheyev and Engvall as he is with Austin and Mitch. And it doesn't impact Zach day to day, regardless of who he's playing with or where in the lineup, whether he's on the power play or not. He comes and works and is an outstanding leader in person for us. With regards to his future, I'm not gonna comment on he or any of the pending free agents, restricted or unrestricted. I just don't think it's productive at this time to do so. And with regards to the expansion draft, I think every team in the league knows that they face it. We've tried to prepare ourselves as much as possible for the expansion draft, and Brandon and I will go through it consistently and try to get a read from Seattle, who they may be keying in on, and how that can how we can sort of mitigate the damage that's done with that. But we're happy to welcome them into the league, and losing a player from your group is part of that business. So we'll sort our way through it and get through it as we do with everything else, and look forward to having Seattle in the league next year.
Next up, we'll go to Luke Fox, Sportsnet. Go ahead, Luke.
Hi, Kyle. If you are able to add to the group in the next few weeks, what's your greatest area of need?
Oh, I think we'll look at everything, Luke. I don't go in transfixed on any one area in particular, but I do think that if we can, we'll try to improve at any position that's possible. Some on our team, like defense and goaltending, are a little bit more stable. In the summer we had to move out some forwards that were good forwards for us in order to add on the back end, and thus we feel like that's an area where we may want to look at a little bit more, but I'm not precluding anything at this point, but I'd say most of the conversations are focused on forwards right now.
And I'm also just curious why you decided to welcome Amazon's cameras in with the group and be part of this all or nothing series. It's quite a little groundbreaking thing for an NHL team.
Well, the league had come to us last year, and I had watched, in particular, I'd watched the seasons that followed the English Premier League teams. So there's Manchester City. I watched that one with a special interest for sure, and so that was my first introduction to the series. And then I have friends who worked on were with the Philadelphia Eagles as they went through it, so I had a bit of an idea. And then Steve Mayer from the NHL approached us last year about it, and we declined to do it, and then came back again after the summer about wanting to do it. And I think the way that we view it is it's us being a good partner in the league to get Amazon involved, and then individually as a team, I think the media and the fans, it's a good opportunity to see the way that things actually operate behind the scenes here day to day, and a good look into what we're really truly about, more than just the 3 hours that you see us at game time, or the different. I know it's a different world in terms of media availabilities, and you all are usually in the locker room and such, but I think it just gives us a chance to show what we're about and be a good partner with to the league and to the other teams by doing this.
Next up, we'll go to Joshua Cloak, The Athletic. Go ahead, Josh.
Kyle, it's been a strange year for prospect development. I'm just curious if there's something that you and Stefan and Scott have done this season that you think have really benefited your prospects.
That's a good question, Josh. I would say that we're most thankful in this regard to the various teams that have had our prospects on them in Europe, as they've been outstanding to deal with in terms of access and video and giving us feedback. So you can go all the way through the list of, and I know you cover that pretty closely, whether it's been Ufa or Asat or Ukrait in Finland or Luleå, like they've been outstanding to deal with when they really don't have to be. And I know they're focused on their own season, and they don't want an NHL team that doesn't start for 3 months. Like I'm talking about September, October, November, December, where you've got this extra focus on your prospects that are playing because it's the only hockey on. But so I think a lot of the credit has to go to them. In the off season, I think the development staff that was here, with Daryl Belfry, Barb Underhill, Randy Milani, Nick Antropov, Denver Manderson, they were sort of in the building every day with our development staff. And because there was really nothing to do, and we had to operate within certain rules and restrictions, but they were able to do just some great one-on-one work. And then Scott and Stefan were able to really handle the taking over of the relationships with the teams that our players were developing with. And we have Will Sibley as a part of our staff, and he's just been outstanding at connecting it all together. So it's given us a chance to have to adapt and not become too complacent in what we do with development. And I don't want to get too deep into the way that we actually do it and run it, but I've been really happy with the job that that the staff that was here in the summer and Will Sibley have done in that regard.
Would you consider trading a top prospect this year to improve your team?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we'll take three more here with LeBrun, Tracos, and Ogello. First up, we'll go to Pierre LeBrun. Go ahead.
Pierre LeBrun from Hearst, Ontario. Kyle, can I ask you whether is a rental player a priority for you guys given the cap implications past this year, or could a hockey deal work if ultimately it's the better fit and you just worry about it later in the summer?
I think we would look at everything. Certainly, knowing that the cap is going to stay the same, Pierre. Anything that's added that has an obligation, and usually you'd put a premium on getting a player that has future years, and that's what we, with Muzzin and Campbell, that's what we've done. It's a little bit more complex this year, knowing that very likely it's going to be at 81.5 again, the cap, and so anything that we take from next year's allotment, it impacts a number of different things, as you can well imagine. So, it's a rare time where probably a rental is a better fit. That said, if it's something that we feel can improve our team long term, we'll find a way to make it work and figure it out, whether it's a pure hockey trade or having to do something else to offset it.
Thanks, Kyle.
Next up, we'll go to Michael Tracos, Post Media. Go ahead, Michael.
Hey Kyle, thanks for doing this. I just wanted to kind of play off that whole All or Nothing documentary. Like, no pressure there for you guys, but is that the expectation for this team? Basically, win a Stanley Cup or bust, and is that realistic for a team that is yet to win a playoff round in the last, I don't know, several years now?
Yeah, I don't know, Mike, that the title of the series is really the be all and end all for where we're at as a team. I think as I had said earlier, and then and certainly before the season, where we're at right now is we're looking to be a team that performs a high level of performance year in and year out, and that starts in the regular season with being a top regular season club and letting the regular season build our habits going into the playoffs. And we feel that if we do that consistently year in and year out, that that will lead us to our ultimate goal, which is to win. But it's so hard in any sport to look at it and say that it's X or bust. So I know there's a lot of talk about winning a playoff round or bust, or winning the Stanley Cup or bust, but I think those can be very day-to-day type endeavors. And I think especially in this role, it has to be more long-term, and you can't get caught up in how the short run results impact that. And it's about trying to build a program that can be a team that has a high level of performance every single year. And that's really the goal from my end. I know that people on the outside and media and others, and I totally understand why, have something in mind for what they expect from the group. And that's part of doing the job here. And I completely understand that and accept it. But for me in this position, my focus has to be on the long run and building a program that can reach our objective.
Just as a follow-up, how much attention are you paying to the teams outside the North Division, and how difficult is it going to be at the trade deadline to determine if you guys are good enough to hang with the Tampas or the Vegases or the Islanders or Carolina or whatever might come out around the corner when you haven't played them this year?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that I think you can only, in terms of competition where your team is at, I think building it to if you finish in the final, if you get into the Final Four, is probably, it's not the way that we will do it. I think we're very focused on our division and because that's the only people that we're competing against. When it comes to staying in tune with what's going on around the league, I certainly just personally felt early in the year that you get so transfixed on your division and the race night in and night out. And so I had and wanting to make sure that I was keeping a good pulse on the league, our R&D department actually set me a schedule of how to watch every week so that I would see every team enough and stay in tune with the other teams enough. So we're fortunate to have them, but I would certainly agree that there is a pull to watch your division much more because of the way it impacts the standings. And to answer your second question in terms of our focus and who we can hang with and who we can't, I think us and every team in the North Division or teams in the other divisions will say they'll worry about that when they get there, if they do get through their own division into the Final Four. And I think that's the way that every team will handle it.
And the last one here, we'll go to Mike Ogello. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, Kyle. Regarding tactics at the deadline and assuming that you're not limited to a money in, money out scenario, the inventiveness of what happened last year with the Leonard deal where you acted as a middleman to retain salary, is that a tactic that you may use?
I think the hindrance on that, Mike, would be that I don't know many teams that have that have that cap space available to serve in that role. But we would explore everything we possibly could if it meant improving the team.
The other part is the quarantine. There have been reports regarding the quarantine potentially being reduced to 7 days, but it sounds like you're under the assumption and you're operating under the assumption that it's still going to be 14 days.
Yeah, until I think that is a decision that is going to come far above my level. I think that's a government and NHL discussion. I know that in the bubble in the summer and then again in training camp, there was the modified quarantine because of the level of testing that our players and people are doing, which is daily, and they did allow it so that because you were, once you tested for 7 days and you were clear, you were allowed to go between home and the rink. And that was in the summer and then again in January, but that's elapsed now. So that was something that was worked out with the NHL and the government of Canada. And so we'll continue to abide by the current rules until they tell us that they're different. And I'm hopeful for not just for hockey, but for everybody that we can see some light at the end of the tunnel here and begin to work our way through it and return to a little bit of normal life as we head towards the summer.